My son was walking down the street when he suddenly saw me, hungry, dressed in old clothes and covered in bruises, begging for money on the corner. "Dad, what are you doing? You get $10,000 a month in pension," he exclaimed, shocked. I whispered, "My son-in-law takes everything. He's stronger than me." He put me in his car and drove me home. When my son saw my son-in-law, he took off his jacket and did something that silenced him forever. Before we continue, please subscribe to the channel and write in the comments what time it is where you are now. The paper cup trembled in my hands. $3.47. I'd counted it twice, though the math wasn't complicated. This was food for the next 3 days, assuming Derek left me the $20 he'd promised this morning, assuming he kept his word about anything. Downtown Portland hummed around me, the midday rush bleeding into late afternoon. I'd positioned myself at the corner of Morrison and Fifth, back partially turned to the street, collar pulled high despite the August heat. An architect's instinct, choosing the right angle. I'd designed 4 buildings within 2 blocks of here. Now I designed ways to disappear. "Here you go." A woman's voice, coins clinking. "Thanks," I managed, barely audible. Kept my head down. Eye contact invited questions. My hands wouldn't stop shaking, even when I commanded them to. The bruise on my left cheekbone throbbed with each heartbeat, a reminder of what happens when you ask questions. 2 days old, purple-black, spreading toward my temple. Derek had good aim. 8 months ago, I'd stood in the doorway of my Laurelhurst home, arms wide, welcoming my daughter Patricia and her husband Derek inside. "Stay as long as you need," I'd said. Their apartment had flooded. Patricia's voice had cracked on the phone when she called. "Dad, we have nowhere to go." I'd cleared out my workshop for them, bought new furniture, $4,500 at IKEA, assembled it myself over 2 weekends. My daughter had hugged me, eyes wet. "You're so generous, Dad. We'll never forget this." The memory tasted like copper now. More coins. I flinched before catching myself. The cup was getting heavier. $4 maybe. I needed to move soon before the afternoon foot traffic died. Before... The silhouette appeared a block down. Something about the walk, the width of the shoulders. My stomach dropped before my brain caught up. I turned my face sharply away, hunched deeper into my jacket. Not him. Couldn't be him. Robert lived in Seattle, worked in software, sent occasional texts asking how I was. And I'd replied, "Fine, everything's fine," because what else could I say? The footsteps kept coming, steady, purposeful. I pulled the collar higher, felt the worn fabric scrape against my jaw. 4 months back, Derek had asked to borrow my ATM card. "Just for groceries, Harold. I forgot mine at home." His smile had been easy, reasonable. I'd hesitated, felt Patricia's expectant look, handed it over. He never returned it. When I asked, carefully, apologetically, Derek had set down his beer and looked at me with something cold behind his eyes. "Don't you trust your own family?" Patricia had checked her phone. The footsteps were closer now, 30 feet maybe. I could walk away, blend into the crowd near the Pioneer Courthouse, but my legs had forgotten how to move without permission. 4 months of Derek's rules, Derek's schedules, Derek's casual violence had rewired something fundamental. This morning, Derek had rifled through my wallet, found the pension deposit notification. $10,000. Direct deposit. Same amount every month since April. Should have been enough to live on comfortably. Maybe even travel like I'd planned. "You're lucky we let you stay here, old man." He'd taken the notification, pocketed it, left me a $20 bill on the kitchen counter like a tip. Patricia had looked away when I protested, her jaw tight, phone clutched in both hands. "Complain and we'll have you declared incompetent." Derek had added, almost bored, "You'll end up in a state facility. You know that, right?" I'd known it. The fear was a physical weight, pressing down on my chest, making it hard to breathe. The footsteps stopped. I stared at the pavement, at the cracks in the concrete I'd noticed on my first day here. Someone had scratched initials into one of them, JM plus RT Young Love, preserved in vandalism. I'd spent 35 years designing buildings, creating spaces where people could live and work and thrive. Now I couldn't even design an escape from this corner. The silence stretched. The city noise continued around us. Cars, voices, the distant screech of the MAX train. But in the small space between my hiding and his seeing, Everything else fell away. I didn't look up, didn't have to. The quality of the silence told me everything. Then a voice, shocked, disbelieving, breaking through the careful numbness I'd built around myself. "Dad?" I tried to become smaller, as if shrinking could undo recognition. My son Robert crouched down, putting himself at my eye level. The movement was deliberate, patient. He'd always been careful like that, even as a kid. "Dad, talk to me." His voice was steady, but I heard the tremor underneath. "What are you doing here?" "Robert, I didn't... This isn't..." The words scattered before I could catch them. "I was just..." His hand reached out slowly, like approaching a frightened animal. He touched my chin, tilted my face toward the light. I watched his expression change as he saw the bruise clearly. His jaw tightened. "Who did this to you?" I pulled back, but he'd already seen. The evidence was written on my face, in my stained jacket, in the cup I was clutching with both hands, like it held something precious. Which I supposed it did. $4.63 now. Someone had added a quarter while we'd been talking. Robert took the cup from my hands, gently but firmly enough that I couldn't resist, and set it on the ground beside us. A symbolic gesture. "This ends now." Except nothing ended that easily, and Derek had made sure I understood that. "Derek," I said, because there was no point in lying anymore. "Derek takes it all. The pension, the savings access, everything. He says it's rent. Says I owe them for taking care of the house." Robert's face didn't change, but his knuckles went white. $10,000 a month? For rent? In your own house? When he said it like that, the absurdity was obvious. But Derek had a way of making unreasonable things sound logical, and Patricia backed him up. And when you're alone in a house with two people telling you you're wrong, you start to believe them. "Come on." Robert stood, offered his hand. "My rental car's just down the block. We need to talk somewhere that isn't here." If Derek finds out I told anyone, the fear was automatic, rising in my throat like bile. "He's not going to do anything to you. Not anymore." Robert kept his hand extended, waiting. I took it. "Let him pull me up." My knees protested. Too many nights sleeping on the floor of what used to be my workshop, after Derek had taken my bedroom for his home office. Robert's hand on my elbow was gentle, supporting without pulling. We walked slowly. I moved like someone used to being hurt, calculating each step. His rental car was a gray Honda, parked in a loading zone. He opened the passenger door, waited while I lowered myself carefully into the seat. The car smelled clean. Normal. I'd forgotten what normal felt like. Robert slid into the driver's seat, but didn't start the engine. He turned to face me, waited. I'd taught him that years ago, how to wait for people to be ready to talk. Architects learn patience. So do good parents, I'd thought. 9 months ago, the last time Robert had called, I'd been healthy, whole. I'd shown him my latest architectural sketches over video chat, a community center design I was consulting on, pro bono work I'd picked up because retirement was boring. We'd talked about the pension starting in April, about maybe selling the house and traveling. Europe, maybe. Patricia had been going through something with her marriage, I'd mentioned, and Robert had offered to help financially. "I've got more than enough," I told him, proud. "Saved my whole life for retirement." That pride seemed grotesque now. "The bruises," Robert said quietly. "Tell me everything." So I did. For the first time in months, I could breathe without calculating the cost. The words came like a dam breaking, not because I wanted to, but because I physically couldn't hold them back anymore. The power of attorney, signed 3 months ago. Derek had been calm, reasonable. Patricia had sat beside him at my kitchen table, her hand on my arm. "Dad, we're family. We'd never take advantage." A lawyer Derek had hired, paid with my money, though I didn't know it then, had slid the papers across. My hand had shaken as I signed. He said if I didn't sign, he'd have me declared incompetent, I explained, watching Robert's face. Patricia backed him up, said I was getting forgetful, that I needed supervision. "That's elder abuse." Robert's voice was flat, factual. "Financial exploitation. In Oregon, that's a felony." The word felony hung between us. I'd never thought of it that way. Derek made it sound like family business, private matters, things you don't discuss with outsiders. Robert started the engine, pulled into traffic, drove with focused attention, occasionally glancing at me. At a red light, he reached over and squeezed my shoulder. The first compassionate touch I'd felt in months. I had to look away. "Patricia," I said, because I needed him to understand. "She's just trying to keep the peace. Derek controls her, too." "She's an adult making choices, Dad." Robert's tone was firm but not harsh. "She's choosing him over you. That needs to be clear." The light changed. We drove through streets I'd known for 40 years, past buildings I'd designed or consulted on, past my old office building where the firm still operated without me. I'd retired at 62, thinking I'd earned rest. "What about the bruises?" Robert asked. 2 days ago, I'd asked Derek for $50. Just 50. To buy groceries myself. To feel like a human being instead of a prisoner. He'd laughed at first. $50? For what? We buy the groceries here. "I need some of my own money," I'd said. "Some of my own money." Derek's face had changed. He'd stood up fast, chair scraping. Patricia had left the room. I'd heard her footsteps on the stairs, quick and retreating. Derek's hand on my shoulder, squeezing, then shoving me against the wall. "You don't have your own money anymore, old man. You have what I give you. And if you keep asking questions, I'll make sure you end up in a state facility, eating pureed food and wearing diapers. Is that what you want?" I'd said nothing. He'd pushed me aside. I'd fallen, hitting my face on the doorframe corner. He'd stepped over me to get another beer from the fridge. Robert's knuckles were white on the steering wheel again as I finished the story. We were in Laurelhurst now, turning onto my street. Oak trees lined both sides, their branches forming a canopy. Beautiful neighborhood. I'd bought the house 30 years ago, raised both kids here. The car slowed. My house appeared through the windshield, craftsman style, blue-gray with white trim. Front porch, I'd restored myself. Through the window, I could see the television's glow. Robert turned off the engine, looked at the house where his father should be safe. His jaw was tight. "Derek's in there?" he asked. I nodded. The fear was immediate, visceral. Robert's voice was calm but carried steel underneath. "Good. I want to meet him." He opened his car door. I grabbed his arm. "Robert, he's dangerous. He's stronger than—" My son looked at me, and for the first time I saw something in his eyes that made me think Derek should be the one who's afraid. "We're ending this today, Dad, one way or another." My hand trembled as I unlocked my own front door. Robert's palm settled on my shoulder, steady pressure that said I wasn't alone anymore. The house smelled different than I remembered, like someone else lived here now. Someone who bought expensive cologne and left takeout containers on surfaces I used to keep clean. The television dominated the living room. Massive, 70 inches at least, mounted where my architectural prints used to hang. Derek sprawled on the leather recliner, another new purchase, in sweatpants and a tank top. Beer balanced on the armrest. He didn't look up immediately, eyes fixed on some action movie, volume cranked high. Then he sensed us. His body language shifted, straightening, territorial. The remote control went down slowly. "Harold, you're home." His eyes moved to Robert, calculating, "Who's your friend?" 7 months ago, Derek had been different that first month. Called me sir, asked before using things, helped fix the loose gutter without being asked. "Let me get that for you, Harold." Always polite, always grateful. Then so gradually I hadn't noticed the precise moment. Permission became assumption. Requests became commands. Derek stopped asking and started telling me what to do in my own house. "We're having people over. You should stay in your room." The shift had been so subtle, I couldn't remember when I'd lost control. "I'm Robert." My son's voice carried the kind of quiet that makes loud people nervous. Harold's son from Seattle. Derek's face did something complicated. Surprise, followed by forced casualness. "Son?" Harold never mentioned. He stood taller than Robert, but softer. Desk job body versus whatever kept my son fit. "We didn't know you were visiting." Robert walked further into the room, taking in the television, the sound system, the new furniture. His face showed nothing, but I knew he was cataloging everything, price tags tallying in his mind. The bruises on his face, how did those happen? Derek's expression flickered. "He's elderly. He falls sometimes. We take care of him here. He's lucky I found him begging for change on a street corner." Robert's tone stayed level, factual. "With a $10,000 monthly pension. Explain that." The television's volume suddenly seemed obscene. Derek grabbed the remote, muted it. The silence was worse. "This isn't your business." Derek's voice rose, filling space Robert's quietness had left. You don't live here. We live here. We pay bills. We take care of this place. His place. Robert stepped closer, not aggressive, but refusing to be intimidated. His bills. His money you're spending, and you're going to explain where every dollar went. Last Christmas, I'd hosted dinner. 20 people. Robert had driven down from Seattle, and I'd felt expansive, generous, alive. Showed Robert my latest drawings. Talked about consulting opportunities coming my way. I'd stood straight then, filled doorways with my presence, laughed easily. The man standing beside Robert now felt physically smaller, like months of fear had compressed my bones. Derek's face was reddening. He signed everything over to me. Legal documents. He agreed. Robert began removing his jacket. Slowly, methodically, he folded it over a chair back, each movement deliberate, revealing shoulders and arms that spoke of regular gym time. Maybe boxing from the way he moved. The tank top Derek wore suddenly looked inadequate. Documents signed under duress aren't legal. Did you know that? Robert's voice dropped even quieter as he approached. And beating an elderly man? In Oregon, that's called elder abuse? That's a felony, Derek. 2 weeks ago, Derek had shown me the television receipt, just $2,800. You don't mind, right, Harold? You never use the TV anyway. I'd protested. That was nearly 3 months of the allowance Derek claimed I didn't need. His face had changed, the mask slipping. You think you're going to watch TV? You're barely capable of working the remote. This is payment for us living in this dump and taking care of your ungrateful... Patricia had touched his arm, whispered something. Derek had smiled, cold and satisfied. Right. You're lucky we're here, Harold. Remember that. Now Derek's eyes darted between Robert and the door. You can't prove. I don't have to listen to this. He grabbed his car keys from the counter. Robert took another step forward, not fast but purposeful. Derek backed up, stumbled slightly on the new rug, purchased with my money, caught himself. Then he ran. Not walked, not stormed out. Ran. Through the front door in his socks, no shoes, keys jangling in his fists like he thought Robert might chase him. His car door slammed. Engine roared. Tires squealed, pulling away from the curb. Robert and I stood in the living room. The muted television flickered colors across the walls. Outside, Derek's car sound faded down the street. I couldn't finish the sentence. He ran away? Robert turned to me. Something in my voice must have caught his attention because he studied my face, and I realized I was smiling. Actually smiling, lips pulling up involuntarily for the first time in months. Yeah, Dad, he ran. For 8 months, I'd watched Derek own my space, command my movements, control my money, my food, my existence. Watching him flee from it took 5 seconds. The man who'd shoved me into doorframes and laughed while doing it had literally run away when someone his own size stood up to him. The smile faded as reality returned. Derek would regroup. Patricia would come home. They'd coordinate, plan, maybe come back with lies or police or something worse. Robert's expression confirmed my thoughts. He'll come back, or Patricia will. We need to be gone before then. The question rose in my throat. Where will we go? Robert was already pulling out his phone. Hotel, tonight. Then tomorrow, we start making this right. He looked up, met my eyes. Legally, permanently. Patricia arrived at 6. I heard her car in the driveway, that distinctive rattle from the exhaust system she kept meaning to fix. My daughter, who used to call me every Sunday morning to talk about her week. Now I listened to her footsteps approach the door with dread. She froze in the entryway, looked at me, then at Robert, then back at me. Her work bag slid off her shoulder. Why are you here? Direct question, but her eyes were on me, not Robert. Dad, what have you been telling people? The truth hung in the air for a moment. Then I said it, quietly but clearly. The truth? The truth? You mean your version? Her voice had that edge I'd learned to recognize, the one that preceded Derek's anger. You know how you get confused. He was begging for money on a street corner, Patricia. Robert's voice cut through like wire through butter. With bruises on his face, while you and Derek spend his pension. Which part of that is confusing? She blinked, adjusted her purse strap, buying time. I watched her face cycle through reactions, landing on righteous defensiveness. We take care of him. Do you know what it's like living here, managing everything? He should be paying us. His house, his money, and you saw the bruises. Robert stepped slightly between us, casual but deliberate. You want to explain those? That was... Patricia's voice dropped. Derek said he fell. I wasn't there. You were there enough to take his money. That makes you complicit. You know that, right? 3 months ago, Derek had brought a lawyer. We'd sat at my kitchen table, Derek across from me, Patricia standing behind my chair with her hand on my shoulder. The hand had felt supportive then, felt like family solidarity. Now, remembering it, I understood it was pressure. Keep me in place while Derek and his lawyer friend talked. You need to sign this for when you get older and need help, Derek had said. The papers were dense, full of language about incapacitation and fiduciary duty. The lawyer kept saying, standard elder care planning, like a mantra. When I hesitated, Derek leaned forward. Unless you don't trust your own daughter, Patricia had squeezed my shoulder. The notary was young, woman maybe 30, didn't make eye contact. Derek paid her in cash. I remembered that detail suddenly. $200 in 20s, counted out on my table. She'd stamped the documents and left quickly. Afterward, Derek had collected all the papers, smiled. This is better for everyone, Harold. You'll see. We're leaving, Robert said now, pulling me back to the present. Dad's staying with me tonight. We'll need his identification, bank statements, anything important. You can't just take him, Patricia's voice climbed. This is his home. We're his family. Then why was he begging on the street? The question hung unanswered. I moved toward my bedroom, Robert staying between Patricia and me. In my closet, behind old sweaters, I'd hidden a manila folder, bank statements from before Derek took over. Some part of me had known I might need evidence someday. My hands shook as I pulled it out. Patricia appeared in the doorway. Dad, please, don't do this. Her eyes were wet. We're trying to help you. You're making a mistake. But I'd already made my mistake 8 months ago when I welcomed them in. The only question was whether I'd correct it now. 20 minutes later, Robert's rental car pulled away from my house. Patricia stood on the porch, phone to her ear, calling Derek, probably. I watched her figure shrink in the side mirror until we turned the corner. The Marriott downtown cost $189 per night. Robert paid without hesitation, declined the desk clerk's offer of 2 rooms. Connecting is fine. He's my father. Like he thought I might disappear if we weren't in the same space. The room had a deadbolt. I locked it myself, tested it twice. Derek didn't have a key to this door. Robert set his laptop on the small desk, turned on the lamp. I need to document everything, starting with the bruises. Is that okay? I nodded. Removing my shirt felt vulnerable, exposing yellowing bruises on my ribs, purple ones on my shoulders. 2.5 months ago, the first pension check had arrived. Direct deposit, $10,000. Culmination of 35 years of saving and planning. I'd been excited, thinking about workshop equipment, maybe a trip to Seattle. Derek had been waiting when I checked my balance. I'll handle transferring it to the household account. Just easier this way. I'd like to keep some for myself. Derek's hand had closed on my wrist. Firm, not violent yet, but promising violence. We had an agreement. You signed papers. For emergencies, not... Every day you're here is an emergency you're not paying for. Food, utilities, space, our time. His grip tightened. That's worth $10,000 easy. Patricia had walked in. I'd looked at her, silently begging for intervention. She'd looked at the floor. Derek's right, Dad. Fair is fair. Derek took my wallet, removed the ATM card, left me $20 on the counter like a tip. Robert's camera clicked, documenting angles, ages of bruises. Evidence. The word made it real, made it something that had actually happened rather than something I'd endured in shameful silence. The power of attorney, Robert said, sitting down with his laptop. Walk me through exactly what happened when you signed it. So I told him. The kitchen table scene, Derek's reasonable voice, Patricia's hand on my shoulder, the lawyer's rapid professional patter about incapacity planning, the notary who took cash and left quickly, how the language had confused me, made me feel stupid for not understanding. Derek's voice changing after the papers were signed. Good. Now we can make sure everything's taken care of properly. Colder, satisfied. Did anyone else witness the signing? The lawyer and the notary. Derek paid her cash. Robert made notes. Cash payment to a notary. That's irregular. He looked up. The threats about nursing homes. Being declared incompetent. Did he say those with witnesses? Mostly when Patricia wasn't there. But once, I asked her if Derek really would, and she said, "Maybe it's for the best, Dad. You can't manage alone anymore." Like she believed it. 6 weeks ago, Robert had called on a Sunday morning. I'd answered, but Derek was in the next room. I could hear him moving around. "Is this a bad time, Dad?" Robert had asked. "No, just busy." I'd tried to sound normal, not afraid. "Who is it?" Derek's voice from the kitchen. "Robert's just checking in," I'd called back. Then fast into the phone. "Everything's fine here, great. How's work?" "Okay, well, I'll call next week." "Sure, yes, bye." I'd hung up quickly before Robert could ask questions, before Derek could decide I'd talked too long. Now Robert was looking at his father's gaunt face in the hotel lamplight, and I realized he was remembering that call, understanding what he'd missed. "I'm taking family leave," he said. 2 weeks, maybe 3. We're going to fix this properly." The hours blurred. My story came out in pieces. The timeline of control, the escalating violence, Patricia's complicity, the systematic theft. Robert documented everything, typing notes, organizing dates, creating a structure from chaos. Around 2 in the morning, exhaustion won. I lay down on top of the covers, fully dressed, afraid to get too comfortable, afraid this was temporary and Derek would somehow pull me back. I heard Robert still typing, soft clicking of keys, then silence. When I cracked an eye open, he was reading something on his screen. Elder abuse attorney, I caught a glimpse of the headline. Lawrence Chapman, specializes in financial exploitation. "You really think we can fix this?" I'd asked before closing my eyes. "We're going to do more than fix it, Dad." Robert's voice had been certain in the darkness. "We're going to make sure they pay for every dollar, every bruise, every threat. That's not revenge. That's justice." Now, drifting toward sleep in a room with a lock Derek couldn't open, I let myself believe him. Morning light through the hotel curtains woke me. Robert was already dressed, coffee from the lobby in hand, looking at his phone. "Chapman's office opens at 9. We should leave by 8:30. Lawrence Chapman's law office occupied the 14th floor of a downtown building with views of the Willamette River. My elder abuse attorney, those words felt strange, was 52, gray at the temples, handshake firm without being aggressive. His office walls displayed certificates and commendations from Oregon elder advocacy groups. "Show me everything," he said. Robert opened his laptop, the manila folder I'd hidden, bank statements, highlighted and organized, photographs of my bruises from multiple angles, numbered and dated, the timeline Robert had created, each incident documented with specifics, the power of attorney itself. Chapman studied the documents for 20 minutes, occasionally making notes. When he looked up, his expression had shifted from professional courtesy to focused anger. "This document has all the hallmarks of coercion." He tapped the power of attorney. "The language is legitimate, but look, it grants comprehensive, irrevocable power. No elderly person would sign this willingly without independent counsel." "He had a lawyer there," I said. "I thought it was normal." "His lawyer, not yours? That's the first red flag. The second is the cash payment to the notary. Your son documented that. Smart. The third is the timing, right after they moved in. This is textbook undue influence." Chapman's words rewrote the last 3 months of my life. What I'd called weakness, he called coercion. What I'd called my fault, he called a crime. In Oregon, financial exploitation of someone over 65 is a Class C felony. Chapman's voice was matter of fact, like he was explaining traffic laws. That means up to 5 years in prison and fines up to $125,000. Your son-in-law isn't just looking at civil liability. He's looking at a criminal record. Potential incarceration. I blinked. Prison? For taking my money? For stealing from a vulnerable adult using coercion and fraud. Yes. Prison. And your daughter, if she was complicit, faces civil liability for damages. By noon, we'd filed 3 documents. I signed the revocation of power of attorney. With a steady hand, Robert noticed I saw his small smile. My signature looked different than it had on Derek's document. Steadier, like I was reclaiming it. Chapman made phone calls while we were still in his office. to Portland Police's Elder Abuse Unit, requesting Detective Raymond Clark specifically. To my bank, putting them on notice about the fraudulent power of attorney. To the court clerk, expediting an emergency restraining order. I watched my attorney weaponize the legal system on my behalf. Robert paid the retainer $3,500 with his credit card before I could protest. This is an investment in justice, Dad, not charity. That afternoon, Detective Raymond Clark arrived at my house in Laurelhurst. Robert and I weren't there. Chapman had advised we stay away, let law enforcement handle it, but Chapman called with updates. Derek and Patricia were both home when Clark knocked. Derek had returned after his cowardly flight yesterday, probably thinking he'd regained control of his territory. The detective's badge changed that calculation immediately. Mr. Foster, I'm investigating allegations of elder financial abuse. Chapman told me Derek had tried his usual tactics. Reasonable voice, claiming misunderstanding, saying I'd signed willingly. Clark was unimpressed. He'd seen the photographs of my bruises. He'd reviewed the bank records showing $28,400 withdrawn in 3 months. Those bruises? He falls. He's old. He's unsteady. Derek's voice had climbed. Chapman said, panic replacing pretense. Patricia had cried, we take care of him. We do everything for him. Clark had been unmoved. Ma'am, your father was found begging for money on a street corner, while you and your husband spent thousands of his dollars. That's not caregiving. The detective photographed everything, took the power of attorney document, collected bank statements, interviewed them separately. Patricia's story didn't quite match Derek's, Chapman noted with satisfaction. Clark's final words before leaving, you both have the right to remain silent. I suggest you exercise it until you speak with an attorney. Back in the hotel room that evening, I felt something unfamiliar. Not quite peace, but its possibility. My phone rang. Unknown number. Robert nodded when I looked at him. Patricia's voice was shaky. Dad, the police were here. They took everything. Bank statements, documents, pictures of your bruises. A pause, breath catching. Derek is saying we need $15,000 for a lawyer. Dad, we don't have that. We don't have anything. My hand tightened on the phone. The question came out quieter than her panic. You had my money. All of it. Where did it go, Patricia? Her voice broke. I don't know. Derek handled everything. Dad, what's going to happen to us? Robert was watching me carefully, letting me make this choice. What's going to happen is you'll face the consequences of your choices, just like I had to face the consequences of trusting you. I hung up. The phone rang again immediately. I turned it off. Robert's hand settled on my shoulder. Outside the hotel window, Portland's lights spread out beneath us. For the first time, I didn't feel like I was falling. Robert hired Vincent Price on Thursday morning. My financial consultant, another phrase that felt foreign, was 48, worked from a small office near Pioneer Square, charged $275 an hour, worth every dollar, Robert assured me. Price took my 3 months of bank statements and transformed them into a narrative of systematic theft. He worked fast, highlighters in 4 colors, creating a spreadsheet that turned Derek's theft into bar graphs. Mr. Mitchell, in 30 years of forensic accounting, I've seen financial elder abuse many times. This case is particularly egregious. Price rotated his laptop screen toward us. Each colored column was money that should have been mine. These restaurant charges, $5,100 in 3 months, that's high-end dining 3 times a week, while you were, according to your testimony, eating canned soup. I'd known Derek was taking the money. Seeing it quantified felt different. $5,000 on restaurants, while I'd rationed cans of soup, making each one last 2 days. And this. Price highlighted another section. $8,500, down payment on a vehicle. Your son-in-law put your daughter in a $34,000 car using your money. The spreadsheet showed everything. $2,800 for the television, $12,000 in direct payments to creditors I'd never heard of, $5,100 on entertainment. Price's report concluded with a single damning sentence. This isn't financial management, this is looting. Friday morning, the bank freeze took full effect. Chapman had expedited it, but institutional processes have their own timeline. Derek discovered this at 8:47 a.m., when his ATM card was declined. Chapman's investigator, hired to track Derek's movements, reported back. Derek had tried 3 ATMs, then driven to the bank branch. The teller had checked her computer. Her expression changed. She'd called the manager. "Sir, the power of attorney was revoked. We received court documentation. Additionally, there's a police investigation into financial exploitation. I cannot provide access to Mr. Mitchell's accounts." Derek's voice had risen. "You can't freeze my access? That power of attorney is legal." "Then Mr. Mitchell can come in personally and tell us that. Until then, the account remains frozen." Derek's world was collapsing in real time. His credit card declined at a gas station. His phone started ringing. Creditors, automated payment systems failing, overdraft notices. His entire financial existence had been built on my pension. That evening, debt collectors arrived at my house. Chapman called with an update, barely containing satisfaction. 2 men, professional collection agency, looking for Derek Foster, who owes $3,200 on a past-due personal loan. Patricia answered the door. Derek tried to brush it off. The collectors were unmoved. I pictured my daughter's face, confused, probably, starting to realize the man she'd married had secrets. "Mr. Foster, you've missed 3 payments. The balance is $3,200, past due by 47 days. We need payment within 48 hours, or this moves to legal collections, judgment, wage garnishment, potential liens." "Personal loan?" Patricia's voice would have been small. "Derek, what is he talking about?" The collectors had left paperwork. Multiple maxed-out credit cards, personal loans with predatory interest rates, gambling debts Derek had never mentioned. Total, $85,000. Patricia had confronted Derek after they left. Chapman's investigator had been thorough. He'd somehow obtained their argument's outline, probably from a neighbor who'd heard shouting. $85,000 in debt? You were using Dad's money to pay your debts. Derek's response had been predictable. "We needed that money. How else was I supposed to handle our situation?" "Our situation? This is your debt. You lied to me." "You think you're innocent? You went along with everything. You told him to sign. You spent his money, too." Their alliance was fracturing. Perfect. Chapman's voice on the phone was strategic, clinical. The financial pressure is working exactly as intended. When someone loses access to stolen funds while simultaneously facing their own creditors, they make mistakes. Derek is now trapped. His only option is to negotiate. But we're not negotiating. We're prosecuting. "Patricia called me 6 times today," I said. I didn't answer. Good. Let them sit in the consequences. When people face real accountability, they either break or they adapt. We'll see which one Patricia is. My phone buzzed. Text from a number I didn't recognize. Patricia had found a way around the block. The collectors came back. Derek owes $85,000 to different people. He's been lying to me for years. I didn't know, Dad. I swear I didn't know everything. He told me you agreed to help us. I believed him. I see now what he did to you, what I let him do. I'm scared. I read it aloud to Robert. His response was immediate. She's scared because she's facing consequences, not because she regrets hurting you. There's a difference. Maybe. But she's my daughter. She's also an adult who chose to look away when you had bruises on your face. Don't forget that. I deleted the text. The phone buzzed again almost immediately. More from Patricia. Each one more desperate than the last. Each carefully avoiding responsibility. Derek lied to me. Not I was wrong. I didn't know everything. Not I knew enough and looked away. I'd raised her better than this, or I thought I had. I turned the phone face down. Tomorrow, Chapman had a meeting with Detective Clark. The criminal case was building. Vincent Price's report would be submitted as evidence. The financial consultant had found something else. The car Derek bought was actually financed in my name, forged signature using the power of attorney. More fraud, more charges. For tonight, I let myself feel something I hadn't felt in months. The sensation took me a moment to identify. Winning. Chapman called Saturday morning. "I need you to talk to your neighbor, Dorothy Sanders. She contacted my office yesterday." Dorothy had lived next door for 15 years. She'd been Harold Mitchell when I moved in, before the divorce, when life looked different. She'd seen my whole arc, successful architect, proud father, now this. "She's nervous about getting involved," Chapman continued, "but she has information. Can you come with me to interview her?" Robert offered to drive us to Dorothy's house, but Chapman suggested just the two of us. Too many people might intimidate her. Dorothy's living room smelled like lavender and old books. She served tea neither of us wanted, hands shaking as she poured. I should have called the police sooner. Her voice was thin, apologetic. I'm sorry, Harold. Tell me what you saw, Chapman said gently. I've lived here 15 years. Harold was always kind, helped me with my gutters, brought me vegetables from his garden. When those two moved in, everything changed. She looked at me, eyes wet. I heard shouting, doors slamming. Last month I saw Derek push you. Actually push you. You fell against the railing. I remembered that day, the humiliation of it. Dorothy had been watching from her window. I almost called police, but Harold saw me and shook his head. He looked terrified. Later, he told me Derek threatened him if anyone found out. Why didn't you call anyway? Chapman asked, pen moving across his legal pad. I wanted to, but Harold begged me not to. He said Derek would make it worse. I'd said exactly that, standing in her kitchen the next day, bruise forming on my hip, asking her to forget what she'd seen. You have nothing to be ashamed of, Harold. Dorothy reached across and squeezed my hand. What they did to you? That's shameful. Chapman's investigator had obtained security footage from 2 neighboring houses. We spent Sunday afternoon in Chapman's office reviewing timestamps, creating a documented timeline. Robert's software background made him useful here, converting formats, organizing files. I watched myself on screen, the hunched posture I hadn't known I'd adopted, the way I glanced over my shoulder before taking out trash, the fearful efficiency of someone who'd learned not to draw attention. One clip showed Derek grabbing my arm, yanking me back inside when I'd been too slow collecting the garbage bins. The force was visible even from across the street. This is strong evidence, Chapman said. Corroborates your testimony, Dorothy's statement, the medical documentation. Monday morning, Detective Clark called Chapman. I listened on speaker. We've got everything we need. Financial forensics showing systematic theft, medical evidence of assault, eyewitness testimony, video corroboration. The DA reviewed the file. She's filing charges. Elder abuse, Class C felony. Mr. Mitchell, you should know this is going to trial. Your son-in-law is looking at serious time. Prison? The word felt foreign. Actually, prison? 5 years maximum for a Class C felony. More likely 2 to 3 with plea bargain. But yes, actual incarceration. Derek received the criminal summons by certified mail Monday afternoon. Simultaneously, Patricia got civil lawsuit papers. $45,000 in damages, every dollar itemized. Chapman had timed it perfectly. Maximum psychological impact. Derek's response was predictable. He called 5 criminal defense attorneys. All quoted $15,000 to $25,000 retainers. One told him bluntly, with the evidence they have, you're looking at plea bargain territory, but I can't help you without payment up front. I learned this from Chapman, who had sources I didn't question. Derek's final desperate move came Tuesday, a formal petition claiming I had dementia, that Robert was manipulating me, that I was incompetent to revoke the power of attorney or file charges. He's arguing you need a court-appointed guardian, Chapman explained, that you're not capable of making these decisions. The fear was immediate. What if they did find something wrong? What if Derek was right, that I was losing capacity? You're sharp as ever, Dad. Robert's voice was firm. You remember dates, details, everything. This evaluation will prove Derek's lying. Dr. Helen Winters, a geriatric psychiatrist Chapman recommended, spent 3 hours with me Wednesday morning. Memory tests, reasoning exercises, questions about my decision-making process. Her report arrived that afternoon. Mr. Mitchell demonstrates full cognitive capacity, memory intact, reasoning clear, decision-making ability unimpaired, no evidence of dementia, confusion, or diminished capacity. He is fully competent to manage his own affairs and make legal decisions. Chapman called Wednesday evening. Derek's competency challenge was denied. Judge reviewed the psychiatric evaluation, Detective Clark's interviews with you, the consistency of your testimony. Denied the petition in less than 4 hours. Judge's written order says Derek's claim is transparently self-serving and unsupported by medical evidence. It's over, Harold. They have no defense left. No defense left? The The words settled into me slowly. What happens now? Now they turn on each other. Patricia will realize she needs to save herself. She'll have to choose, go down with Derek or cooperate with prosecution. Chapman paused. I'm guessing she chooses self-preservation. I thought about my daughter, the woman who'd watched me bruise and said nothing, who'd spent my money while I rationed soup. If she wants to cooperate, what would that mean? Chapman explained the options. Testimony against Derek. Divorce. Repayment plan. Reduced civil liability. Think about what you want, Harold. You have the power, now. After hanging up, I looked at Robert. Patricia's going to call me, isn't she? Robert nodded. Probably. The question is, will you answer? Thursday morning, Patricia texted Robert, Please, I need to talk to Dad. I know I don't deserve it, but I need him to hear me, just once. Robert showed me the screen. We sat in the hotel room, breakfast cooling on the desk between us. Your choice, Dad. I'd blocked her number days ago. Couldn't handle the desperate messages, the justifications, the apologies that didn't include accountability. But maybe that was the point. She needed to hear what accountability sounded like. Stumptown coffee. 2:00. You stay with me. Always. I wrote notes on hotel stationery. Key points. Boundaries. Robert added one line at the bottom. Don't let her make this about her feelings. Keep it about her choices and actions. Patricia arrived at 2:03. She looked exhausted, unwashed hair pulled back, yesterday's clothes, makeup smudged from crying. She moved toward me, arms opening. I stepped back, gestured to the chair across from Robert and me. Sit down, Patricia. We need to talk, not embrace. She sat, hands twisting in her lap, that nervous gesture I'd seen since she was 6. Except she wasn't 6. She was 36 and had watched her husband brutalize her father. I didn't know how bad it was. Her voice was small. Derek told me you agreed, that you wanted to help us. You saw the bruises on my face. I kept my voice level. You saw me wearing the same worn-out clothes while you drove a new car. What did you think was happening? I told myself you were clumsy, that you were okay with helping us. She was crying now. I wanted to believe Derek because the alternative was that your husband was beating me and stealing from me, and you'd have to choose between him and me. You chose him. For months. That's the truth you need to face. I want to help now. I'll testify against Derek. I'll tell Detective Clark everything. Robert's voice was cold. You want to help now? Where were you 3 months ago when he forced Dad to sign that power of attorney? You're not helping Dad. You're trying to reduce your own legal liability. That's not fair. I didn't understand. You understood enough. You just didn't care enough. There's a difference. Robert, I cut him off. Let her speak. Patricia looked at me, not Robert. I was wrong. I know that now. I can't undo it. But I can stop it from continuing. I can testify. I can divorce him. I can pay you back. Please, let me try to make it right. I pulled out my written list. Here's what needs to happen. 1. You give Detective Clark a full statement. Everything Derek did. Everything you saw. No minimizing. 2. You file for divorce. Today. This week. Soon. 3. You work out a payment plan with Chapman for your share of what was taken. 4. You accept that I may never fully trust you again, and you earn back whatever relationship we might have through years of different behavior. Not words. Behavior. I'll do it. All of it. I promise. Your promises don't mean anything right now. Your actions will. If you follow through on these things, we'll talk again. If you don't, you'll face the full civil lawsuit, and I won't intervene with prosecution on your behalf. Understand? She wiped her face with her sleeve. I understand. Thank you for giving me a chance. I'm not giving you anything. I'm telling you what justice requires. You earn your way back. Now go. We're done for today. She left. Robert and I sat in silence, watching her car pull away through the coffee shop window. Friday afternoon, Patricia gave her testimony. Chapman was present, made sure it was recorded, legally usable. 3 hours of detailed statement, Derek's pattern of behavior, financial transactions she'd witnessed, Harold's visible fear. Derek told me he had power of attorney, and that Dad agreed he should manage finances, she said into the recording. I saw large withdrawals. When I asked, Derek said Dad wanted to help us get established, but there were times I questioned it. Once I saw Dad eating soup from a can for dinner, while Derek and I had gone out to a $200 meal. I asked Derek if we should be spending so much. He said, "Your father wants us to enjoy life." I chose to believe him because it was easier. Detective Clark, did you witness any physical altercations? I saw Derek grab Dad's arm hard enough to leave marks. I saw Dad flinch when Derek raised his voice. Once I came home and Dad had a bruise on his face. Derek said he fell. I asked Dad if he was okay. Dad looked at Derek and said he was fine. I knew something was wrong. I knew. But I didn't do anything. Same day, she filed for divorce. Irreconcilable differences in Derek's criminal conduct. Petitioned for her maiden name back. Derek received the papers Friday evening. Chapman's sources reported he'd exploded, screaming, throwing furniture, calling Patricia's phone. She answered, put it on speaker, her friend witnessing. You're leaving me? Now? When I'm facing criminal charges? When I have nothing? Patricia's voice was steady, cold, the kind of person who finally sees clearly. You told me we were building a life together. You lied about everything. Your debts, $85,000 I knew nothing about, using my father's money to pay your gambling debts, beating him, threatening him. You made me complicit in elder abuse. I could go to prison because of you. You spent that money too. You can't just... I spent it believing you when you said my father wanted to help. You manipulated both of us. The difference is he's the victim and I was the fool. I'm not going down with you. I gave Detective Clark my testimony today. I filed for divorce an hour ago. It's over. You'll regret this. I'll tell them you knew everything. I'll make sure they... Make sure they what? Charge me? They already are. But with my testimony, I'll get a plea deal. You? You're going to prison. Goodbye, Derek. She hung up, sent the recording to Chapman. More evidence of threatening behavior. Saturday evening, Chapman called the hotel. Patricia filed for divorce yesterday. Gave her full testimony. Detective Clark says it's exactly what they needed. The DA is moving forward with formal charges against Derek. As for Patricia, with her cooperation, they'll recommend reduced civil liability and no criminal prosecution. She'll owe you $8,500 instead of $45,000. Payment plan over 2 years. Does that work for you? I looked at Robert. He nodded. It works, if she actually follows through. There's one more thing. Derek has been served with an eviction notice. Since the house is yours and the power of attorney is revoked, you have the right to remove him. You could go home, Harold, as soon as the locks are changed. Going home. I hadn't let myself think about it. When? This weekend, the 23rd, we'll have police present to ensure Derek leaves peacefully. You'll walk into your house as the sole owner, the way it should be. After hanging up, I sat quietly. Robert asked, "How do you feel?" Like I'm waking up from something, but I'm not sure yet if it was a nightmare or just my life for a while. It was your life, but it's ending now. The next part, that's yours to choose. Choosing. I hadn't had that option in so long. This weekend I'd go home. Really home. Thursday morning, Chapman called with the court time. 10 o'clock. Wear something comfortable. The judge has reviewed everything. This should be straightforward. Robert drove us downtown. I wore the same clothes I'd worn begging on Morrison Street 2 weeks ago, then caught myself and changed. That man was gone. I chose a clean button-down shirt, khakis, dressed like the architect I'd been. The courtroom was smaller than I'd imagined. Wood paneling, fluorescent lights, American flag in the corner. Chapman sat beside me at the plaintiff's table. Across the aisle, Derek sat alone. No attorney. His public defender had advised him to accept the judgment rather than fight. The judge was a woman in her 50s, reading glasses perched on her nose, reviewing documents with quick efficiency. Mr. Foster, you exploited a vulnerable elderly man for financial gain. Her voice carried authority without volume. You used legal documents to steal, physical intimidation to control, and systematic manipulation to maintain power. This court finds you liable for $43,400 in restitution and damages. You have 90 days to begin payment or face enforcement action. Additionally, a permanent restraining order. You must stay 500 feet from Mr. Mitchell at all times. Derek started to speak. Your Honor, I've read the evidence, Mr. Foster. There's nothing you can say that will change these facts. She looked directly at him. This court is referring your case for criminal prosecution. Elder abuse is not a civil matter to be settled with money. It's a crime. Patricia's judgment came next. $8,500. 60-day payment plan. No criminal charges due to cooperation. Outside the courthouse, Robert put his hand on my shoulder. "You did it, Dad." I nodded, unable to speak yet. The judge's words had rewritten my reality. What Derek called help, the law called crime. What I'd called weakness, the court called evidence of abuse. Over the next 2 days, Derek's world finished collapsing. His employer terminated him. Criminal charges were public record now. The bank repossessed the car Patricia had been driving. Debt collectors began garnishment proceedings. He had 48 hours to vacate my house. Friday, I prepared to go home. Robert hired movers, a locksmith, bought a ring security system for $199. "What if I can't feel safe there?" I asked him that morning, packing my few belongings from the hotel room. "What if every room reminds me of—" "We'll make new memories, starting today." Saturday afternoon, we arrived at the house. Derek's borrowed truck was in the driveway, a friend helping him load. 2 police officers stood on the sidewalk. Chapman's arrangement. Derek saw me, started to speak. "No contact, sir." The officer stepped between us. Restraining order is in effect. Derek looked at me with something I couldn't quite name. Rage, maybe. Defeat, certainly. Then he climbed into the truck and drove away from my property for the last time. I watched until his truck turned the corner. Gone. The locksmith arrived within the hour. Robert and I changed the front door lock together, my hands steadier now than they'd been 2 weeks ago. Each turn of the screwdriver was a decision. This is mine. This space. This safety. This life. "These are good locks," the locksmith said, testing the deadbolt. "No one's getting in without your permission." "No one's getting in without my permission." I liked the sound of that. We walked through the house room by room. The massive television Derek had bought still dominated the living room. I stood looking at it. "I want to donate that," I told Robert. "The TV, the recliner, the sound system, everything Derek purchased. I don't want his things in my house." "Even though you paid for them?" "Especially because I paid for them. Someone at a domestic violence shelter can get use from them. I just want them gone." Chapman arranged pickup for Monday. The workshop space, the room Derek and Patricia had occupied, was empty now. I unpacked my architectural drafting tools, hung my old sketches on the walls. Robert helped me organize, not directing, just assisting. "This space looks like you again, Dad, like when I was a kid and you'd have drawings everywhere, smell of wood and coffee." I forgot what it felt like to have my own space. I touched one of my old drawings, a community-centered design from 5 years ago. To not be afraid in my own home. To make coffee without wondering if Derek would criticize me for wasting money on good beans. "You're going to have to relearn normal. It'll feel strange at first." Strange sounds wonderful compared to what I had. Robert pulled me into a hug. "You did it, Dad. You really did it. You got your life back." "We did it." My voice was thick. I couldn't have done this alone. 9 months ago, I'd been here in this house, healthy and whole, showing Robert architectural sketches over video chat, planning my retirement. Then Patricia had called about the flooded apartment, and I'd welcomed them in with open arms. How fast everything had changed. How slow the recovery. That night, Robert stayed at the hotel to give me space. "You need to reclaim this place as yours, alone, without me hovering." After he left, I walked through each room, touched familiar objects. The kitchen table where I used to sketch, the chair where I used to read, the bedroom where I'd slept for 30 years before Derek took it. I lay down on fresh sheets Robert had bought. The house was silent. Every sound made me tense. A car outside. Was it Derek? A creaking floorboard? Was someone in the house? The Ring doorbell's green light blinked steadily through the bedroom doorway. The deadbolt was locked. I was safe. I knew I was safe. But my body didn't believe it yet. I'd learn. Tomorrow, maybe, I'd start believing it too. Sunday morning, Patricia texted Robert. "Can I see Dad? Please. I need to talk to him." Robert showed me the message. We were in my kitchen, drinking coffee I'd made from beans I'd chosen. Small things mattered now. "Your call, Dad." I thought about it. Avoiding her wouldn't make the hurt disappear. "Here, 11 o'clock. You stay with me." "Always." She arrived exactly on time. Dark circles under her eyes, inexpensive clothes, hair pulled back simply. She looked exhausted. Working, probably, barely sleeping, carrying the weight of her choices. I let her in but didn't embrace her. Gestured to the living room. Robert and I sat together on the couch. She took the chair across from us. Dad, I'm not asking for forgiveness. Her voice was steady despite the tears. I know I don't deserve it, but I need you to know what I've done. I gave Detective Clark full testimony. 3 hours. Everything Derek did. Everything I saw and did nothing about. Derek will go to prison. I made sure of that. You testified to save yourself from criminal charges. I kept my voice level. Let's be clear about that. She nodded, accepting. Yes, at first. But by the end, Dad, I couldn't unsee what I'd been ignoring. How scared you looked. How thin you got. How you flinched when Derek raised his voice. I testified because it was true, and because you deserved better from me, she continued. I'm working 2 jobs. Mornings retail, nights restaurant. I moved to Gresham, a studio apartment, $950 a month. I'm paying you back $141 every month. It'll take 5 years. I filed for divorce. I'm going back to my maiden name. Robert's voice was cold. You're doing all this because you face civil judgment. Where was this change 6 months ago? Patricia looked at me, not Robert. I was a coward 6 months ago. I wanted to believe Derek because our life was easier if I did. I chose easy over right. I chose comfort over my father. I own that. I can't undo it. But I can stop doing it. I'd written notes last night, points I needed to say. I pulled them from my pocket now. Patricia, you made choices that hurt me. For months. This isn't something we fix with one conversation. If you want any possibility of rebuilding a relationship, and I'm not promising we can, here's what needs to happen. Keep paying what you owe. Every month. On time. Stay in therapy. Address why you enabled Derek. Give me space. Don't call, don't visit unless I invite you. Let me control the pace of any reconciliation, and understand that even if you do everything perfectly, I might never fully trust you again. That's not punishment. It's reality. Can you live with that? She wiped her face. Yes, I'll do all of it. I'll wait as long as it takes. And if you decide you can't forgive me, I'll accept that too. I'm so sorry, Dad. I know you are. Sorry isn't enough, but it's a start. Now you need to leave. This is exhausting for me. She stood, moved toward me hesitantly. I stood too, but didn't close the distance. She nodded, understanding, and left. After her car pulled away, Robert asked us, How do you feel? Sad, relieved, angry still, tired, mostly. I sat back down heavily. She's my daughter. I want to forgive her. But wanting to and being able to are different things. Maybe someday. Maybe never. And I'm okay with either outcome. That's healthy, Dad. You don't owe her forgiveness just because she's family. I keep thinking, if she'd spoken up even once. One time. Anything. But she never did. And she has to live with knowing she didn't. That's her burden now, not yours. Robert returned to Seattle Monday morning. We hugged in my driveway. Call me every day, he said. I will. Thank you, Robert, for everything. You would have done it for me. I hope I would have done it sooner, he smiled. You did it when it mattered. That's what counts. That evening I sat on my front porch. August sunset, air cooling, the smell of someone grilling down the street. I'd made coffee from fresh beans. Good quality, not the cheap stuff I'd rationed before. Every sip tasted like freedom. Dorothy waved from her garden next door. I waved back. Normal neighborly gesture. But it meant something now. Connection without fear. My pension had deposited that morning. $10,000 directly into my account that only I controlled. I'd already booked a ticket to Seattle for mid-September. Visit Robert, meet my grandchildren properly, maybe take them to that science museum they love. Plans. The ability to make plans without fear someone would stop me. I'd contacted my old architecture firm that afternoon, left a message about consulting work. Maybe they'd call back, maybe they wouldn't. But I'd asked. That mattered. The plants around my porch were thriving. I'd been watering them daily, nurturing growth. They'd been dying when Derek controlled the house. Now they were coming back, like me. My phone buzzed. Robert, love you, Dad. Talk tomorrow. I typed back, love you too. Thank you for finding me. The street was quiet. The Ring doorbell's green light blinked steadily through the window behind me. House secure. Locks changed. money mine, life mine. 2 weeks ago, I'd stood on Morrison and Fifth with a paper cup and bruises on my face, believing that was just my life now, believing I deserved it somehow, that I was too old, too weak, too broken to change anything. Then Robert had walked down that street. I'd almost given up. That day, holding that cup, I decided this was it. This was what being 65 meant. Powerless, controlled, afraid. But seeing Robert reminded me who I was, who I still am. I designed buildings that still stand downtown. I raised 2 children, one of whom drove from Seattle and mobilized lawyers and police and the entire legal system to save me. I survived 35 years in a demanding profession. I saved enough to retire comfortably. I wasn't weak. I was in a situation that required strength I didn't know I had, and I found it. The coffee was cooling in my hands. I sipped it anyway. Not perfect, but mine. Everything was mine again. The house, the money, the decisions, the future. Life didn't end when I stood on that street corner. It just changed direction, and now it was beginning again. Different, smaller maybe, quieter, but mine. Completely mine. And that was enough. That was everything. If you like this story, please like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share your impressions of this story in the comments. To listen to the next story, click on the box on the left. Thank you for watching.